Not that you look day old. Maybe it is.
was noticing that about you and your mom. But yeah, my rule was because my kids were on staff at family in Kuwait, but on Rob's side of the family, his brother is Thomas. His kids are right around me and mixed age, but his sister's kids are Kuwait. And so I was like, you remember me
Good afternoon, everyone. I am the Reverend Charles Laughlin, and I have the pleasure of welcoming you here to the Morristown Unitarian Universalist Fellowship today. The Morristown Fellowship has long been a place where people have gathered from diverse traditions, diverse backgrounds, where all seekers of truth are welcome. So I think it's an appropriate place today as we gather to honor an appropriate rite of passage, a milestone in a life where the very room itself will say something about the best of the best. I wonder, as we are beginning today, if you would just take a moment to settle yourself. I'm going to invite you to breathe in with me together. Take a deep breath in. And let it out. And once again, a deep breath in and release. And one more time, a deep breath in and release. We share breath. We share space. We share honoring the things that matter. Welcome. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Sydney Williams, who's going to give us the opening remarks. Oh, did Sydney step out of the room? Oh, there he is. Welcome, welcome.
Good afternoon. I have some prepared remarks, but let me just say briefly, Chris was both a mentor and friend, and we are sad about his departure, but he has left an imprint on all of us that knew him. So I'm going to read my prepared remarks, but then I may offer some adjusted remarks as well. We gathered today to celebrate the remarkable life of Chris Lawrence Donovan Martin. Chris, a devoted husband, father, grandfather, great-grandfather, and a servant of God's people. Chris and I shared a special bond. We were both fellow Howard University alumni. And if you ever walked across the yard, that is the Mecca or Howard University, for those that know where Howard is, our almost president, Kamala Harris, went to Howard University. And I'll help you a little bit. You know that being part of this legacy is more than just earning a degree. It is literally stepping into a tradition of excellence, resilience, and responsibility. And Chris carried that tradition into every sphere of his life. Chris lived a life of public service. He broke barriers in as Morristown's first black alderman. He worked on the school board and planning board. He pressed for fair housing and better representation, making sure that communities that were often overlooked had a voice. His fingerprints are still in the institutions, neighborhoods, and politics that shape Morristown today. But Chris never let public achievements overshadow the human side of his calling. He wasn't just about policy. He was about people. He was a griot, a storyteller, someone who knew that history is not just about dates, but also about lives and struggles and triumphs that deserve to be told and remembered. Chris is also a mentor and a friend. For me, Chris was a mentor. He was someone I could look to for wisdom and perspective. He didn't just mentor me with words, he welcomed me with presence. He opened his homes to my family. In fact, my daughter's sweet 16 was at his home in Morristown, Mendon, Morristown Township. And he invited us up to what's that name? The one in the north. Berkshire, yes, that's it. The home where W. Du Bois was from. And then he also opened up his home to us in Hilton Head. That was very gracious of him, and my family will never forget it. In those spaces, we didn't just find hospitality, we found belonging. We found an elder who reminded us that leadership is not only about positions, but about presence, generosity, and grace. Chris leaves a faithful legacy. The Apostle Paul once declared in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 7, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Those words describe Chris's journey. He fought for justice when it was unpopular. He ran with endurance even when the road was long. And through it all, he kept the faith. Faith in God, faith in his people, faith in the future, and a future that can be better than the past. Chris lived the scripture Hebrews 13:2, which is etched on his heart. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing that, some have entertained angels without knowing them. His homes were not just places of shelter, they were sanctuaries where hospitality and wisdom flowed freely. Chris left a call for us to carry on. He often said we needed more griots, more storytellers, people who know the community's history and pass it on to the next generation. That's our assignment now, to remember to tell the stories, to keep alive the vision of justice, fairness, and community that Chris embodied. I want to share a personal story that many did not understand, but Chris got it. 2015, I had a meal with Chris and some of the leaders in this community. We realized that public or partisan politics wasn't working for the black community in Morristown. When we sat down, we developed a strategy, a bipartisan strategy to run with Republican support and Democratic support. We met with Democratic leaders and they endorsed my candidacy for town council as a Republican candidate. Some people were confused. They thought I was loyal to one party. We were loyal to an agenda. And I'm really grateful that Chris could comprehend and understand the strategy of running a bipartisan campaign in a town that's divided by politics. We didn't win that race, but it was just a special moment to be in the Republican office with Republicans, Democrats, white, black, Latino, gay, straight, religious, non-religious. We're all together with one agenda, affordable housing and a better community. I share that memory because we need more of that right now, more than ever. We gotta love our neighbors ourselves. Forget all the politics stuff. We gotta just make it real simple. Love your neighbor as yourself, and we can have a better community. So today, we just don't mourn, we give thanks. We give thanks for the life of a man who shaped Morristown and shaped lives. We give thanks for a fellow Howard alum who reminded us that education is not just for personal gain, but for communal uplift. We give thanks for a mentor whose wisdom shaped my journey and whose open doors gave my family a place to belong. Rest well, Chris. You have fought the good fight, you finished the race, you kept the faith, and because of you, we are stronger, wiser, and determined to carry the torch forward. God bless you.
Good afternoon. This is an original composition based upon a Hebrew prayer for peace. Since we are going to be singing the prayer in Hebrew, I'll give you a rough translation. It asks that the Almighty grant peace, goodness, blessing, graciousness, kindness, and compassion to all of the world.
sunlight. 'Tis now twilight, and I must take my leave, humbly, for I have been among intellectual giants. It still seems incredible that these same giants with their PhDs have given such great encouragement to me. What is it about men of learning that a student like myself received their understanding? I note they never parade their wit, for they know a little learning is a dangerous thing. I should guess that when a man becomes a giant, he glimpses sights of truth as yet unknown, which those less alleviated cannot discern. Enough of this before I ramble. My main interest was to bid adieu, so let's be on our way now. The cosmotographers have their meeting in the auditorium, and Dr. Webb is anxious to look at the television. What's this about a man who lost his glove? My dear man, you are in the Cosmo Club, and such things are the common fare. They'll set it right tomorrow, I wager. Did you say it was snowing, sir? I really must leave and trudge through the snow, like Fra Lippo Lippi, tapping on doors, until I find a refuge for the night. No, don't worry, I'm sure I'll be all right. You see, tomorrow promises to be fair, and I've got things to do, tomorrow in the sunlight.
Hi, my name is Chloe Llanos, and I am Christopher Martin's great-granddaughter. My great-grandfather, as many of you know, was a very kind person. He was the type of person you could talk to just about anything, and he would listen. He's done a multitude of things, not only for his family, but also for others around him and this very community. Let me tell you a few other things about him. He was very proud to be an engineer, but he was also a proud writer, and as quiet as it's kept, a poet. I'm sure a lot of people know he was a writer because he loved to say, "Read my book," but not many know he also wrote poetry. He was also, and most importantly, one of the funniest people I've ever met and a true gentleman. I have yet to meet someone as charming as my great-grandpa. That is without a doubt. But most importantly, in a sea of haters, he would be your biggest cheerleader. You could always count on him. He was unique and didn't judge you by your flaws or imperfections. To close, I would like to share a poem I wrote with him in mind. As my years go by, the tempo changes, a sonnet of change and familiarity. For when a treasured star is gone, the sky is almost lifeless, without color and without emotion. But when you remember a star, the skies will shine, the memory resonates with you, until new dawns I shall think of you, my friend, keeping you close in my heart. Oh.
Hello, my name is Alexander Llanos. I'm Christopher Martin's great-grandson. I'm here today to honor the man, the legend, Christopher Martin. To me, he was just Pop-Up. Having spent 12 of my formative years with him, I learned a great deal. 12 years may not seem like a long time to all of you, but as a young adult, 13 years old to be precise, 12 years of fond memories is a treasured time to me. My best memories with Pop-Up are from when we lived in Raleigh, North Carolina. I was only 5 years old back then. So much to learn. Pop-Up and Nona, my great-grandmother, would stop over our house on their way to their house in Hilton Head. Pop-Up would share so many great stories with Chloe and I about his past and growing up in Guyana. He told a lot of jokes that, as you can imagine, a 5- and 3-year-old wouldn't understand. Our mom translated for us. We would laugh hysterically afterwards. He stayed with us several times a year. Every year to Hilton Head, there and back again. We really looked forward to it. And when we moved closer to our great-grandparents in New Jersey, we got to spend more time together. We were very close. As my sister said, he was also very easy to talk to. He was also very wise. He called himself a griot, and he really was. He went through a lot in life, made many mistakes, and wanted to teach us. He exposed us to different types of people, cultures. We traveled overseas together, shared a love of classical music, and he was there for many important moments of my life. He was very supportive and passionate, fiercely protective. He was present from the very beginning, for moments that I was too small to remember, but my mother, his granddaughter, does. He was far from perfect, not one of us is, but he was always there for me and my family. He was there for his friends, his community. Papa, to me, will always be a loving, honorable man, someone who strives to be there for those in need. I will always remember him in this way.
First, thank you everybody for coming today. What a glorious, glorious day it is outside. And also, Marty, you didn't even mention that you've traveled with Chris and Mom and Beth. And so they weren't just people off the street, they're friends of family. And just your performance was just magnificent. Thank you. And thank you everybody else who've given remarks so far. So, take off your PC filter, because we're going back to the early 70s. And I might say things that a 63-year-old white woman should not say. So please forgive me ahead of time, because as Chris would say, I'm just telling it like it is. I'm going to lift up the hood a little bit on some parts about Chris you might not know. So I remember meeting Mr. Martin, and that was one T, one word, Mr. Martin, sometime around the early 70s. It was sometime around when the Nixon administration when Nixon was getting impeached, Watergate was going on. You know, I was 12 at the time, so it's hard to remember exactly when he started showing up all the time. I may have met him even earlier, because as a matter of fact, he and my dad served on the Board of Aldermen at the same time. My earliest memories of him being a part of my life are the debates that he and his friends would have around the table about what was going on with Watergate and everything else. I didn't call him by his first name until I graduated law school. And I think, Marika, you're the same way. We both we knew him as Mr. Martin, and that was how he was. I can honestly say, though, at no time in my life, my experience in Morristown, was I ever on the receiving end of a racial slur or an unkind word or anything like that about my mom's new boyfriend and later husband. Quite the contrary. My classmate and eventual stepbrother, Derek, and I were usually asked, well, when will you two start dating? Ew, boy icks. But we can attribute that to the town and the culture that Chris helped build, the integrated school system that he fought for. But in our house, life was, shall we say, colorful? In many ways, being part of a biracial family introduced me to a whole new language. The N-word and the H-word flowed freely, usually when Chris was watching his beloved Knicks play the Celtics. Mom and Chris realized pretty early that the best way to deal with racial tension was to hit it head-on with humor. So as a result, if somebody was late, you're on CP time. And if I confuse one black person with another, well, it's because they all look alike. Fortunately, I knew better than to ever repeat any of this outside the home. What do you call a black cat in the 70s? Idi Amin, of course. And during the Abscam scandal, when Chris and Mom started driving south, they decided he should have an Arab name. The best they came up with? Sheikh Yabudi Yadarki. Who thinks of that? Richard Pryor was the comedian of choice. Go listen to I Hope I'm Funny, or the word association skit between Chevy Chase and Richard Pryor on SNL, and see if they still work 50 years later. Next slide. I used to say that Chris could speak 3 languages, British, white, and black. He was the ultimate code switcher, going from wearing a suit and a pocket protector and patting his hair down during the week to full-on afro and dashiki every weekend, or just a regular guy. He even had, you can go to the next slide, he even had his friends created, he didn't create it, his friends created a sign for him. If you want a revolution, call Super Martin. Available weekends only. Here's one of Chris's achievements that you will never have read about in the papers. So in the late 60s, and this is before I even knew him, when the Black Panthers were sowing fear, and in some cases violence, in cities and small towns across the country, Chris learned that they were about to move into Morristown. He rounded up several reputable and some not so reputable Morristown blacks, and they confronted the Panthers up in Dover, telling them that Morristown was doing just fine, keep your political issues and your agenda elsewhere. After a lot of back and forth, some of which may have gone farther than words, the Panthers agreed that they might be more welcome in Newark and Jersey City. And they never set foot in Morristown, and thank goodness for that. Next slide. Chris was the ultimate statesman, always involved in something. I remember he would be on the phone till all hours of the night with Manny Auerbach, Pat Wheeler, B. Jenkins, Connie Montgomery, hours on end discussing who knows what about what needed to be done for the school system or some such other social issue. He was always involved in one election or another, supporting one person or another. But one year, he was dead set against a particular Morristown candidate, called him all kinds of names. He should be hung by the balls. Believe it or not, that was a frequent statement Chris made about people. But a few years later, that candidate ran again for office, and Chris put his full weight towards supporting him. And I said, Chris, how can you do that? You hate this guy. His one-word response, politics. On one occasion, he was sharing some information with me about a neighbor, and I said, Chris, you really shouldn't gossip, you know. Well, without missing a beat, he said, I'm not gossiping, I'm just telling you what I heard. Next slide. We had some great family trips together. Skiing in Vermont, summertime in Cape Cod, and even a trip to Disney World. The ski trip was awesome. Derek, Mikey, Kari, me, Colleen, you were there on one of them, and even our friend Buddy Youngener. Chris spent all of 20 minutes on skis, and according to him, he did a flip, took those skis off, and spent the rest of the weekend in the condo. He was always willing to have fun. He was always willing to, you can show the next slide, play games and be silly, and just here's some pictures of him dressing up and enjoying himself. But our one trip to Cape Cod was fun. We packed the car to the gills. It took hours. And just as we were about to leave, Chris ran back inside. He had forgotten the electric pencil sharpener. What a nerd! Once in Cape Cod, the neighbor was clearly upset that a biracial family had rented the cottage. She came over every night to count the silverware. Chris invited her in, plied her with booze, and by the end of the week, they were good friends. Chris used a different charm, you can go to the next slide, with my grandparents. As 60-year-old white Protestants, they had a difficult time accepting that their new son-in-law was not only black, but heaven forbid, a Catholic. They didn't attend the wedding in 1976, but over the years, through his charm, wit, devotion, perseverance, caring, and sharing of recipes, Chris won them over. And though Grandpa died too early, Grandma came to love Chris too. Chris taught me to drive at a very young age. Don't tell my parents, but I think I was 14 or 15. Or maybe I should just say he sat in the car while I drove around, giving me advice. Your brake is your best friend. Your brake is your best friend. Little did I know that he was a two-footed driver. Always. Next slide. Chris loved to cook, and he and Mom threw lots of dinner parties and hosted outings and events, and you heard Reverend Williams mention a couple of them already. You may remember being with him and Mom at their 35th wedding anniversary, or Mom's 80th birthday bash at the Madison Hotel, or their many Christmas parties, or Chris's book launch in 2021. His parents were caterers, so it was a natural fit for him. His dinners, epic, but he would use every single pot and pan in the kitchen. And having grown up with maid service, he never cleaned a goddamn one. I dreaded those dinner parties. He loved a good table setting and always took a picture of the dinner before it was served. Who knows where all those pictures are now. But they did have one fabulous party that I will never forget, and Marika was there too, our senior year in high school. They invited everyone within a half-mile radius, over 100 people, to our small home on Maxwell Court. At noon the day before, Chris's buddies from the Housing Authority started roasting an entire pig on a spit in our backyard, slathering it with grease and barbecue sauce all night long, while Mom and other friends cooked 125 pounds of chicken that they stored in the coolers at Sherney's Bar and Grill until party time. Shirley and Janet Winston were, of course, invited to join the party. First, we danced to a piano player, and later a 4-piece band. At intermission, there was a belly dancer and a singer. And at 4 a.m, with the party just starting to wind down, the police came, telling us that the neighbors were complaining. And Chris said, well, we invited all the neighbors. And the police said, no, they're the ones across 287. That was a hell of a party. As recently as last year, people from Morristown that Chris ran into on the street would still mention that long ago party and how epic it was. Now, there were some bad times. In 1986, Chris was forced to accept that he had developed an alcohol issue. He checked himself into a clinic, did his 30 days, and never touched a drop again in his life. You have to admire him for that. He beat the odds. At one point, he said to me, I can't drink, I can't smoke, all I have left is sex. Anita! Now, I would be remiss not to point out just how passionate and in love Chris and my mom were. He absolutely adored her. Although he often griped about the newspapers that she carried everywhere, or should I say that he carried everywhere, because she's usually 3 to 4 months behind, he called himself Bob, Beast of Burden. But more often than not, or I should say, not a day went by where they went to bed angry. And more often than not, if I called in the morning, they were still just lounging together in bed, making plans for the day, and enjoying life together. Chris was ridiculously generous. He would give someone the shirt off his back, and oftentimes lent people money, knowing he would never get it back again. We can go to another slide. He was always a visionary. Oh, and then another after this, sorry, I got caught up. He was always a visionary, whether it was to build affordable housing on Colon Center, improve the Greenway for Patriots Path, build new homes in Baltimore, help young black men become entrepreneurs or encouraging them to pursue engineering, improving the housing for the elderly or the senior citizen center, helping Latinos form a soccer league. He simply wanted to better the world for everyone. Next slide. Throughout the years, he was both my mentor and my tormentor. You kids are our future. You are going to save the world. You have to learn to lead, he would say. And as a side, given the current state of affairs, I'm sorry, Chris, we failed you. But at the same time, he would tease me mercilessly about whatever grammar or middle school issue was bothering me, usually boy issues, which would just get him to sing, "There's a thin line between love and hate." Arr! Drive me nuts. But he always encouraged me. He wanted me to judge or a public servant. That was not in my DNA, but I've done my small part, and I did follow in his footsteps when I took on the leadership of Historic Speedwell in 1999, ushering its transfer to the county in 2002. And there's no doubt that while I followed my mom's footsteps in becoming an attorney, it was Chris's influence that led me to become an equal employment opportunity attorney. I often consulted with him on various, and you can skip ahead on the slides here, sorry I ran behind. I consulted with him, keep going, change, next one. There we go. I often consulted with him on issues that I was dealing with at work, and he would always give me good advice and help me manage through those situations. He loved talking to people about their lives and often challenging them about their beliefs respectfully. Many of my friends have come up to me and told me how much they loved and appreciated their discussions with him. One note we received from Brittany Morowitz, Morristown deli daughter, was particularly poignant. She said he wasn't just a customer, he became part of the fabric of the deli, and in many ways a part of our family too. He always had a kind word, a warm smile, and a kind of wisdom you don't forget. He gave me advice over the years that I still carry with me, and his presence brought a sense of comfort and familiarity that was more than words can say. We can go to the next slide. So in his later years, he and I had lots of conversations about what he had done, what he hoped to achieve, and he said, if anyone had ever told me that in my 80s I'd just be playing with a cat, I would have said you're crazy. So one day, Chris and I had a conversation about his desire to have a statue in honor of a prominent African American in Morristown. He thought Crispus Attucks would be a good model. I said, Chris, Crispus Attucks never set foot in Morristown. Why in the world would we have a statue in his honor? He said, Kirsten, you're just being a racist. I said, seriously, is that the best you got? But I did do some research, and I was hard-pressed to find a famous historic African American that we could honor in Morristown. So on that note, I call upon the town fathers in Morristown to erect a statue, not to Crispus Attucks, but in honor of the man who worked hard to make Morristown what it is today, who represented the tenants on Flagler, created the Second Ward, served on the town council, the Urban League, the Fair Housing Council, twice on the school board, the Park Commission, Historic Speedwell, who helped create the Latino Soccer League, who was a housing engineer, a visionary for the Manahan Senior Center, and maybe someday the Greenway of Patriots Path, the man who always, always spoke truth to power. Let's make it happen. In closing, all I can say is that my life, and those of many others, was hugely enriched by a Guyanese immigrant, and I wouldn't have had it any other way. I'd like to invite any other family member who would like to give remarks at this time. If not, then we'll move on to. Jenny. Okay, come on up.
So I am absolutely just a crier. I think that's okay, but I wanted to have more time to get myself together. Kimberly and Leonard, my daughter Selena, so Uncle Chris is my godfather, married to Darlene, so the first quarter of his life. But what I remember most is, I'm in my 20s, I'm coming to New Jersey to hang out with Michael and Derek, and so I wasn't really thinking about family, I just wanted to get here in time before the club closed. But I would always visit, and over the years, I really started to recognize that whenever we were here in Jersey, or whether Uncle Chris was in Maryland, he was so present for us. I mean, I just felt like Chris and Anita just, looked forward to the visit or were happy we were here. Kirsten, just like you said, always made dinner. He had to have the right meat. Every pot in the kitchen was used, and it was a mess in there when he was done. But our meals were always fabulous. And so, as I got older, 25, 30, 35, 40, I realized that he just was happy to see us, and we were happy to see him. So, I grew to realize that we were not forgotten. Over the years, my family has spent so many summers in Hilton Head in the Berkshires, at Chris and Anita's home vacationing. We have memories. Our kids grew up there, so we've got videos of them doing plays and jumping in and out of the pool. We spent many summers just at all of their homes celebrating. This time last October, I decided to have a family reunion on our property because we'd never done that before. And the matriarchs were our Aunt Bonnie from Philadelphia and our Uncle Chris in New Jersey. And I did not want to have that event without them present. So a year ago, with his breathing machine on, Uncle Chris made it to Maryland. It was incredible. He asked to have all of the grandchildren and great-grandchildren present so he could talk to us. So we had 15 of us, I don't know, I'm 60, 61, on down to our children, present in the tent outside. And Uncle Chris spent the evening with Aunt Bonnie telling us stories some of us, Leonard and I, knew, and stories that we did not know about our grandparents, about our father, about our uncles. And it was just an amazing, amazing evening. I had no idea that whatever was happening in Uncle Chris's life at one point, that my grandparents stepped in and paid for a semester at Howard University. I mean, stories like that. I heard the story of when he met my Aunt Darlene, and my father was there in his military uniform on, and Uncle Chris said, I don't know how to get around Leonard, our dad, but I gotta get her my number. I mean, just incredible, incredible stories. So I definitely wanted to share that he was a great uncle to all of us, and a great godfather, and you know, everything you said, Kirsten, I could just reflect on the little pieces of those stories that I knew about. And so I did not know his parents were cooks, chefs, and so that explains why Michael, Derek, and Uncle Chris all love to cook. So I just, I love the family. I grew up with Kari. We were younger. I've got pictures of us hanging out together, but it has been like so many years in 2 different states. But I just wanted to be able to stand here for a moment and to share what he meant to our family. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jenny Kaplan. I am Kirsten and Kari's half-sister, Anita's first husband's daughter. My kids call Anita and Chris Grandma Anita and Grandpa Chris because we're just family. So I'm singing this song for Chris and Anita. First time ever I saw your face, I thought the sun rose in your eyes, and the moon and the stars were the gifts you gave to the dark and the endless skies. First time ever I kissed your mouth, I felt the earth move in my hand, like the trembling heart of a captive bird that was there at my command, my love. And the first time ever I lay with you, I felt your heart so close to mine. till the end of time, my love. The first time ever I saw your face, your face, your face, your face.
So we would like to invite any friends who'd like to get up and share some words about Chris, maybe experiences or memories that you have. Please feel free. You want to say something? Dad, my father always gets up and say something.
Take a look around you. Look at each other. What do you see? I'm going to be a little solemn for a few minutes. The marriage between Anita and Chris was a bond, but not just between two people, between two families. And it represented an engagement of a whole community, of those of us here, different faiths, different nationalities, different races, different ethnicities. And here we are, listening to one another, respecting one another, enjoying each other's company. So their marriage reached out, not just from the two of them, and not just from their family, but the whole community. This is what our country should be like. Thank you.
Okay, in that case, Ray. I'll invite Ray. Is Ray? Yeah, I'm here. Okay. Ray is a friend of Chris's from a long time ago, countries ago.
Hi. I feel real honored to be able to say a few words today. It's really very impressive to see all of you here. It's a reflection of who Chris was. Chris was a very kind person, and I think this is a reflection of respect that you have for him, as well as reciprocating the kindness that he has extended to many people, because that was his natural inclination. That has been my experience, and my experience goes back a long time. I met Chris for the first time 76 years ago. We were both 12 years old, and we were both entering secondary school in what was then British Guyana. We grew up in a British colony, which is now called Guyana, an independent country. It was a very special school, and I'll tell you just a few things about it, because it probably helps to fill in some of your understanding and perspective of who Chris was, and how he was acculturated, and how he grew up, and what expectations were for him by his family, and nurtured by the school environment. it was a very special secondary school. You know, it was one of those colonial schools that really was intended for the expatriates, for the sons and daughters of Englishmen who ruled the country, because it was, they were being prepared in a manner to be able to reintegrate into the United Kingdom. But practicality prevailed, and the British establishment soon learned that it was so difficult to send managers and executives and so on out from the mother country, Britain, that it was important to extend the education to the local people. The local people being the descendants of slaves, indentured workers from China, Portugal, India, and the indigenous people. It made sense to open this education to them so that they could be part of the core, the cadre of administering the country. So our education was geared in that way. And unconsciously, we were being prepared for leadership. We didn't know. We were just, Chris and I, we just went to the school. It was a good school. And we knew we were expected to perform well and learn the ethics and so on. It was a Roman Catholic school. And our teachers and instructors were priests for the most part. There were a few lay teachers, but they were priests from the United Kingdom. They all came either from England, Scotland, or Ireland. And so they were there to infuse that culture into us. But most of all, they were excellent, excellent instructors. And we got an education that we would compare with anywhere around the world. It was a Jesuit school, and the Jesuits are famous for focusing on education. So I think it was important for me to round out some aspect of Chris's upbringing to you. And we were taught that excellence was important. And it was important to pursue excellence in everything that you pursued. So that was a given. We were taught competition. Not the raw, nasty competition. Competition was built into the school culture in so many different ways, unconsciously. I'm addressing this in retrospect, because at the time, we were not aware about this. We were young kids who just wanted to play and whatever. But in later years, being able to sit with Chris and we would, just talk and throw ideas around and so on, then the realization dawned on us that these were some of the features and some of the aspects of the upbringing that we experienced. And when I say competition was infused in us, there was a system of houses. As you entered the school, you were assigned to a house, and with house colors. So you had a sort of affinity for that house, and the houses competed against each other, whether it was in cricket or soccer, football, or track and field. That was built in. And then there was also a competition on the class level, second form, third form, fourth form, all the way up to the end of school. So that was the environment, and that was part of the nurturing and the burnishing that Chris experienced that enabled him to pursue his tasks and his visions with passion and with effectiveness. I thought I'd share that with you. But there's just one little incident that I'd like to, I've told some people about this before, and but it was important. The incident, as simple as it was important in changing the trajectory of my life. You know, we entered the school together, and for 6 years we moved from class to class. We were in the same classroom together as we moved along, because we were in the A class, you know, 2A, 3A, 4A, upper 4A, fifth form, where we took the General Certificate of Education administered by Oxford and Cambridge University. And then we went into the sixth form. Well, the sixth form is, you really wanted to prove to Oxford and Cambridge and those universities that you're really capable of being accepted. The fifth form was sufficient. But the sixth form gave you an opportunity to breathe a little bit and figure out what you're going to do with life and etc. And there was an incident that changed the trajectory of my life. We were studying English literature, I guess so, and some of the old English poets and so on, you know, Chaucer and Pope and what have you. And we were studying The Rape of the Lock. If you're familiar with The Rape of the Lock by Alexander Pope, this is one of these epic poems that has many cantos and verses, and epic in that it used a lot of imagery of Greek mythology and Roman mythology and so on. So just to read the poem, you had to know about Greek mythology and all that sort of stuff. And the priest, who was a teacher, after assigning the reading, asked us one day, well, what do you think about this poem? How could you describe it? Because, you know, we're now in the sixth form. We're supposed to be very bright, you know, wanted to go, being prepared to go to the best universities. And in my mind, I said, gee, you know, if I had to write an essay about it, write a response about it, you know, I'm trying to figure out what to do. And Chris says, bantering gravity, 2 words. And the priest said, yes, you got it. This is a poem, I mean, just, it's a book. I could hardly get through the book. And he says, bantering gravity. At that moment, I said, well, do I really belong in this class? Because I am not capable of that type of insight. I was a slow reader to begin with. So when we get to Chaucer and Burns and all that sort of stuff, I'm going to be way behind. And then the next course was, next class after that was going to be calculus and so on, and I didn't have a mathematical mind, you know. So I said, listen, I got to get out of this place. So I figured out, it turned me into a salesman, really, because I had to sell my father the prospect that I don't need to spend 2 years in the sixth form. That's not required for me to enter in the university, you know, because my one brother had already gone to Howard, you know, a few months before that, and they were teeing up my sister to go, because my sister's older than me. So really, I was next in line, and theoretically, I should have done the 2 years in the sixth form and before. But I convinced my father. I said, listen, I don't need to know all of that literature and all that sort of stuff. I want to do business, you know. And I could get into university in the United States without all of that stuff, you know. So it was a sales job I had to do, because it put some pressure on my dad, because the same year he had to send me and my sister to Howard University also. So the three of us are at Howard University at the same time. But that, you know, I told Chris about it. He says, I don't remember that. So I had to tell that little story. And I'd like to recommend very, very much Chris's book. Chris is an author also. And the book that he wrote, it's really a fantastic, you know, really he's a griot and that type of thing. It's like a detective story in search of his grandfather. But more than that, it represents a deep commitment that he made to his family, that he made to his deceased mother. And he didn't abandon the project because she died or because his sister died. He persisted. And with the help of his brother and a lot of help from Anita, they did a lot of research to pull the pieces together, and it makes very, very interesting reading. But more than that, it is a book of self-examination by Chris about himself. And I tell him, Chris, this is a love letter. This book is a love letter. It's a love letter to your mother. So it's a book that's effective on many levels. And if you're interested it will give you greater insight into Chris, who he is, who he was, and why he was able to be so effective. Now, I'm also going to be the translator, right? Because there is a song that's in the program. And just let me say something about the song so that it would make sense to you. It's a song of determination and resistance. And it came about because Guyana, you know, which used to be the poorest country, one of the poorest countries in South America and the Caribbean. And when you announced to someone that you were from Guyana, they would say, yes, West Africa. They're thinking of Ghana. And you say, no. Then they'll say, oh, Guinea. No. Oh, Guinea-Bissau or Equatorial Guinea? No. And then they listen to your accent and they say, oh, an island in the Caribbean there. Wrong. It's on the continent of South America. It's the only English-speaking country on the continent of South America. And why I'm going to translate, because in many of the English-speaking countries, there is a dialect, the local people. And imagine, and some of the language, and it's not in the heroic couplet, you know, of a British style. This is in a Caribbean rhythm and cadence and what have you. But it's a song of resistance because the country found itself just after independence of being, what can I say, where Venezuela was claiming more than two-thirds of the country. The part of the country with all of the resources, you know, most of the mineral wealth, forests, and what have you. And now there's oil offshore from that county. And this performer, Dave Martin, not related to Dave, not really. His only relationship is that he also went to St. Stanislaus College, where he went, and he died last year. But he was older than Chris and I. He was about 5 or 6 years older than Chris and I. So there are some. So it's a song of resistance that you. But there are some words. Yeah, there are some words. So I'm going to tell you in advance. When you hear those words, you will put them in context in the meaning. There's cuirass. That's really is a species of catfish. It's a catfish. Then blue saki. That's a bird. It's a gray-blue songbird, but they call it a blue saki. Golden apple. It's a fruit. It's a tropical plum. Jamun. It's a small, dark fruit the size of a grape. And then there are Essequibo. Essequibo is the part of the country that Venezuela claims. Pomeroon is also borders Venezuela and the Atlantic Ocean in the northern part of the country. And Rupununi is the southwestern part of the country of savannas bordering Brazil. So don't be put off by these strange words. The names are primarily indigenous people or Amerindians, as we call them, who are part of the country. And Guyana itself is an indigenous name for land of many waters, because there are many rivers that drain the Amazon basin into the Atlantic Ocean.
I just want to say the reason we're singing this song is because it's a song that Chris loved. And it's very moving for anybody from Guyana, because as Ray said, Venezuela is claiming they own half of Guyana, especially now since Guyana has more oil than anyone in the world. So even though we don't have the music to this, you'll pick it up very quickly. The beat is great. Please sing the song as best you can.
Okay, so with that, I would just like to make one quotation, in ode to Chris. It's similar to the book of Timothy that was read earlier by Reverend Williams. And but this is secular. This is from a Persian poet, Omar Khayyam, which goes, "The moving hand writes, and having writ moves on, nor all its piety nor wit may urge it back to cancel half a line, or a tear wash out a bit of it." Chris has written his book, has written his life and the ages, time, and nothing will urge him back to cancel or change his life. It was a very impressive life, a great life. And if I could find one word to describe it, just one word, one adjective, I would say kind. That would be the adjective. Thank you.
We are a peaceful people, struggling we struggle, and we don't look for trouble, just just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. No, we ain't giving up no mountain, and we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belong to we. Not one sake, not one rice grain, not one grass, not a blade of grass. This land is our land now. We're gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow, but never break. Our fathers came here, and they lived and died here, and we are moving from here. Make no mistake. No, we ain't giving up no mountain, and we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belong to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupanuni and the Essequibo, daytime or night. Though we criticize it, this is our home, we love it, and we mean to keep it. We have that right. No, we ain't giving up no mountain, and we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belong to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass, not one golden apple, not one jamun, not a drop of water from the farmer room, not one sherriga, not one mommy, not one guinea.
Thank you for coming and participating, and please join us in the chew room where we can gather, share memories, and have some eat and drink.